All right, folks, looks like we're up and live. I'm just going to hang tight for a little bit, get a few people checked in. We'll do the intro here in a little while. All right, first guy, Daniel's checked in. What's going on? We'll just hang tight for a little bit, let a few more people check in, and then we'll get started. Hey, Russ, how are things out your way? Things are starting to melt here finally. No, Tommy. I'll leave that up to you at some costume party. Hey, Heath, what's happening? I'm not smart enough to be president, Nolting. I just stick with bikes. That's all I know. Yeah, Russ, same here, buddy. We got that rain and it melted all the ice. Now it's just icky and mushy. You did it that, Tommy. I am a little bit, David. I mean, that's what I do. I'm actually an IT guy for school, so yeah, that's my. So I redecorated today with a little bit of IT humor. So this one says, "Bite me," and this one over here you can't read, but it says, "When in doubt, try another hole." A little off-color humor, and there's obviously a bunch of little different computer plugs and connections up there. So yeah. I did. All right, well, we've got a few comments and a few people going on, so I'm sure some more will tune in as we get going. I'm gonna go ahead and just start with the intro. First of all, I don't know, just welcome to today's episode. Again, another ice day here. Obviously, we'll probably be good to go tomorrow, so I'll be back at work and getting ready to make plans for the weekend. Today we're just going to do a quick Q&A. Had several people ask some questions, toss some ideas out there, and had some come up yesterday. And I'm just going to try to answer those as best I can. I also hope that I keep this shorter. Yesterday was way too long. I should have broken it up in at least two bits. If today runs long, I'm actually probably just going to stop it and restart it so that it'll be in two segments. Because if we try to use these again, they really need to be smaller segments. So yeah, let's go. First and foremost, before we start anything, you can see I'm getting a little plug here. We've got some Turkey Mountain Bike Festival trophies from last year, and hey, that's what we got coming up this weekend, and that's what I want to talk about to start off with. You guys mostly have seen Ray's post. I think it was a well done post, and follow suit with everything that I preach about this subject over and over. By the way, I'm trying to get back into good graces of Team Winebox, so there you go. We're going to evaluate, not we, Ray's going to evaluate, and his crew, they're going to evaluate, and we've been in communication off and on yesterday and today, and they're going to go out and evaluate the course. Right now, things are looking okay, not great, but okay. One thing to keep in mind is they're getting a little rain, but they have not got all the ice that we've gotten, and so that ice, how that soaks in and accumulates, and it's really hard to get rid of that. So luckily they've stuck to rain. Looks like the short courses for them for the Saturday event are looking better because they're all localized there at the YMCA. But again, we're going to hold off making any decisions, anything like that, until tomorrow when Ray gets a chance to go out and evaluate that course. But I really think that there's a very high possibility that we have this race. It's not going to be, it's going to be a little dirty. It's not going to be a mud fest. If it is a mud fest, then obviously we'll see about that. But I think there's a very high probability we have this. And I think that a lot of the guys from Oklahoma City in this way, because of the ice that we've had and the fact that we've had so many school closings, I think a lot of people have already checked out because they assume that it's the same way there. It's not necessarily the case. So I'm going to put a challenge to all you guys right now that have already made the decision to not go because you don't want to race in the mud. Man up, take your bike down there, and let's go ride in the mud. If it's dirty, clean your bike. Take it to the shop, they'll put some new bearings in it, you'll be good to go. Enough said on that. Let's move on. Let's lead on in. I don't know, we'll lead into this question. I'm going to touch on this. Timothy Tyner, he popped in one of the first questions, actually. I don't know, it was 2 or 3. It's the first one I wrote down, so it was early on. And he asked about trail sustainability. So I'm just going to touch on that. This is not my forte. In fact, I probably have a little bit different view on that than most, mainly being where I ride, the places that I ride. This is more of an OEF question, Oklahoma Earth Bike Fellowship. This is their gig. This is what they do. This is their main mission: trail advocacy, trail maintenance, trail sustainability. This is what they do. So I think this stands on itself as probably another topic at some point. Maybe sit down with Tegan and some other people at OEF, and I'll just interview them. I'll let them talk about this because this is their thing, and they know more about this than me, and they know the right things to say. As for sustainability, obviously there's a way to build trails and there's a way not to build trails. I think all the trail builders learned that. Some trial and error. Some just have good terrain. I think you also have trails that are in more sensitive areas. But I will say that I think that we have changed much over the last 10, 15 years, and that is that people are much more concerned about the trails now than they ever have been. People riding muddy trails or even posting about riding muddy trails just get absolutely flayed online. In social media for doing it, and how they're evil and they're the most horrible people on the face of the earth. It's really gotten to the point where it's, you have to be very careful. I don't advocate riding muddy trails, but I also think that trails are much tougher than you give them credit for. Trails are repairable. Trails are not utterly destructed by people riding on them in that way. Yes, it makes it a little more work for the trail bosses, but hey, if you're one of the guys doing that work and you're the one fixing the trail and you want to ride it, you want to let people ride it, more power to you. We ride Medicine Park that way all the time. I ride Steed that way all the time once we get Steed up and running. And Mother Nature takes itself back when she wants to. So enough said on that topic. Again, I have a little different viewpoint on that. But again, not my main thing. Back up a little bit. Alan White Alan, I think, popped the first question, and it was tire pressure. I'll talk a little bit about this, but it's a very personal thing. And this is honestly something that we just get used to dealing with. I don't even think about it anymore. In fact, we just adjust our tires. We know exactly what pressures we like for what courses, and 2 or 3 pounds here and there makes a huge difference. But tire pressure is very important. I find that a lot of the beginner riders just simply don't know that. They read the little thing on the side of their tire and it says, fill that thing up to 30 to 35 PSI. I'm not going to touch that. You posted the first question. How's that? Is that better? Tegan Steed is almost halfway ready to ride, so you need to come play on there. Forrest used to dominate that. Glad to see you back, Forrest. Forrest rode some lap times out there that I can't even imagine riding at Steed. I love that place. Tire pressure. Yeah. Ask a beginner. It's like, man, how much pressure you got in there? 35, 40 pounds. I didn't want it flat. Well, that's too much. I mean, even if you have a tube in there, 35 pounds is pretty high. Lower pressures are a little better, but again, I'm not going to go in and get into specifics. I'll give you just a few. I'll just throw a little bit out there on what I ride. I'm a 165-pound rider. I'm not a very careful rider. I'm not very cautious. So I hit a lot of obstacles. I hit a lot of stuff, case a lot of rocks. I'm also hardtail. I'm also single speed, so I case a lot of things. So I don't have suspension taking up bumps. I run typically anywhere between 23 and 25 in the front, and I run about anywhere between 24 and 28 in the back. If it's super rocky, super rooty, I'll ride just slightly more pressure because I don't want to case anything. If you case anything and you smash that sidewall or smash some of those treads up against the rim, back in the tube days, that was called pinch flat. Still the same case, same scenario, but it can actually possibly cut your tire, even with tubeless. And so I like to avoid that. But yeah, anyway, you just have to play with that, do the math, know your weight, know the style of bike you have, know the style of ride you do, and I say lower your pressures. Most people probably run too much. I know I go air up Dez's tires right before a ride, and I don't put 23, 24 pounds of pressure in there, and every time she lets about 2 or 3 pounds of pressure out within 2 miles into the ride. So, you know, she's running closer to 20 across front and back. So, Dustin Smith just popped in. He rode his cross bike. I think you told me you had 40s on, Dustin, on your cross bike. It's Chili bike. So Rudy, not a super tech course, but although that yellow trail is a little bit rocky, but with his 40s, he rode 20 PSI. So that's pretty low. All right, enough of that, but I will go ahead and Alan just asked another one. Good one, follow suit. Camelback water bottles, which is easy for races. It's all personal choice. I moved away from the backpack many years ago for racing, mainly just because I didn't want to carry that weight on my back. I figure if I'm carrying heavy weight, I want it on my bike, not on my back. Just more comfort for me, and that's really the only reason. I do regret that sometimes, but I still stick with the bottles no matter what. If you've got a really technical course where there's not a lot of places to grab a bottle, it's very difficult to get a drink sometimes, but a little practice, you can figure it out, and you can always find a place. A lot of people prefer the Camelback, but again, I just do not like that weight on my back. Now, if I'm out on a long ride that's not a race, maybe I'm in Arkansas doing some out-of-the-way place where there's no place to get help, you're kind of out in the wilderness a little bit, I'll carry a backpack because I need to carry more stuff. I've got to be able to fix my bike in case something goes wrong. I got to have tools, got to have extra tubes. So I'll carry a backpack, but I won't put water in it. I'll carry it for just tools and stuff like that to keep it as light as I can. And I'll still put my water on my bike because the water's heavy. So yeah, that's about it. David posted that. That is a good point. A lot of that depends on your bike as well. Although for racing, not a big issue because almost every bike has at least one bottle cage that's up in the middle where it's easy to get. A lot of them, if they're full squish or if they're a smaller size, you can't fit 2 bottles on. I have a hardtail, extra large frame, so I can fit 2 bottles on no problem. So bike frame makes a difference too. Had this question pop up, and then I think there was a follow-up post a little while ago. Vintage bike class this year. So I'm talking about 26-inch wheels, but that's all vintage. There's been a lot of talk about this the last couple of years, and it's not going to happen for me. Let's just put it that way. I'm not going to create a class for this, at least not right now. I just haven't had time to think about it and find a way to fit it in. And again, it's just one more thing that we have to deal with on race day, and we already have a ton of categories, a ton of classes within each category. I guess I should say not a ton of categories. We have 3 categories, and then lots of classes within each category. Ideally, this would be a fun event on Saturday, a Saturday event. But again, that's hard to do. If a promoter wanted to one-off something like this, I'd be glad to, to look into that, but not something that's going to come from the Tour de Dirt that's going to be a full-on class right now, at least. So, yes, sir, Scott Moore, back 40 loop. There's a lot of good stuff there. I'm telling you what, we've really gotten to like that Kessler trail. They've made some new stuff out there, Scott. It's awesome as well. And they're making some really cool stuff out at Kohler. I'm not a bike jumper, and I don't like getting in the air. I don't like all that downhill stuff, but there's a whole new section, and they're building even more out at Kohler that's more cross-country type stuff. So that's turned into an excellent little spot as well, along with the back 40, and I guess the back 40 still got more plans to go. So I know it's way off topic in Arkansas and not Tour de Dirt, but hey, we ride bikes, we ride them everywhere. Doesn't matter where. I'm going to save this one. I want to thank Chris Call for the vintage bike question. Trying to get shout outs to who asked the question as well too. Jess Parker, you're asking the wrong guy. Jess asked me about squeaky rotors. I've had them too. I'll just give you a little bit, but I mean, I'm no mechanic, and you guys, Chris Drummond and Corey Denton. My skill set when it comes to fixing stuff's minimal. Typically, it's going to be corrosion on the pads of the rotor, whether it's from debris, whatever. I've had some issues in the past with one of my sets. I think it was leaking fluid in the piston area, and it was just continually getting that. So we changed rotors, changed pads, nothing happened. It still squeaked. I finally just tossed the whole damn thing and got new brakes, fixed her up. So I don't know. I'll let someone else discuss that. And people can probably toss comments in here but almost always it's corroded rotors or corroded rotor itself or pads. I'm sorry. So anyway, and there's also various types of pads as well too. So some people have preferences, some people don't. Some pads squeak, some don't. So anyway, I'll go on because I'm not really all that good about that. Yeah, that's pretty much right, Marty. I do break things. I'm not a fixer. All right, Cordis, I'm going to skip this one until last because this is going to be a big one. Steve asked me about the CAT up process, and there's a lot of questions about this. I think I'm going to save that till the end since it's probably a fairly big one. In fact, if we run late, I may stop and start and then use that one to talk about in the second segment. So I'm going to circle that, so I'll make sure I go back to that. Taking Malone threw one out there and just said, what happens after the race when you're done? What's standard operating procedure? I talked a little bit about that yesterday. So you finish your race. Again, first of all, I want to say if you're in the race, you finish your race, you're great. If you cross that finish line, fine. But if you do not cross that finish line for whatever reason, does not matter. Check in with that official. Don't check in with me. Don't check in with people at registration. Go to the USA Cycling official that is at the start-finish line. Let them know. Make sure they get your name and get your number. That way we don't go searching for you when we realize that someone is not checked in, and only to find out that you just left the venue and are not lost out on the course somewhere. So please do that. Other than that, your race is finished. You need officials. We'll have to have time to let all the racers finish for your category and your class, and then they will start calculating scores, places, and all that. They will, once they have all that done, they'll post it, and then there'll be a 15-minute protest period announced once they're posted somewhere in public view, and you can go look and check, make sure everything's correct. If there's an issue, then you can go to the official and they can help you work that out, and then we'll repost and continue like that. Other than that, we do, and then once the protest periods are all done, we'll do awards. every venue does awards a little bit differently. Some of them will all go ahead and do the Cat 3s as soon as the Cat 3s finish, because we run the Cat 3s first, and then the Cat 3s are all finished, protest period's over, and the Cat 1s and 2s are still finishing their races, and so those awards can be done. So it's possible, this depends on the venue. They may choose to go ahead and do the Cat 3 awards, so the Cat 3s can go home if they want to, so they don't have to hang around for another 2-3 hours to get their award. Some promoters will wait and do everything at the end. It's just a preference on them, and TdD Dirt doesn't really control that. We just let the promoters make that decision. Steve Slauson did pop in here. He says, do not stop at the start-finish line for any reason. Ride through, clear the area for the next finisher. Don't hang out, don't block that area. So I know that I'm probably guilty as anybody about doing that. You start, you finish, and then you want to stop like right there within about 5 feet and talk to your buddies about what'll happen. Just keep on pushing through. Roll on out 10-15 yards, get off the trail. There's usually a taped off area. You can do the same thing right there and be out of the way. So good call, Steve. Yeah. Jason, know where the start finish line is. That is correct. Definitely go check that out before the race. Something you need to do pre-ride, something you need to do pre-race. If you happen to be in the sprint or you happen to be in a close battle and you don't realize the line's where it is, you may back off and have someone go around you, vice versa. So know where that's at. Good call. Sometimes there are also, we have a couple venues that do raffles and things like that, giveaways. So always stay around for that. They do that various ways. Some do, some don't. So there's food, beers. Sometimes there's music and a lot of people hanging out, and that's pretty much it. So, all right. That is true, Trish. The start finish are not always the same at the same place. We may start at one place and have like a little roll in, but the finish could very well be different. That is correct. So you need to know where the finish is, because it is not always at the exact place where you started. That is correct. But it's up to the rider to know that. It's all going to be marked, but a lot of people sometimes just, they're busy with everything else. They don't go check that out. And it's just something that experienced racers do check out. They know that. It's just part of what they do. So I think as you get more experienced, you'll understand that you can just go check those things out. It doesn't take long. You're out pre-ride and warming up anyway. So might as well go ask somebody where it's at and make sure. If you're not sure, ask. So, okay. This is short and sweet. I know it was meant kind of jokingly. Richie Bean asked about why he can't ride his e-bike. Well, one, I'm pretty sure, Richie, you don't have an e-bike, but I know we have several out there. You can ride it all you want. You just can't race it. Can't race it into a dirt race, and that's because we are USA Cycling sanctioned, and it is not an acceptable means of transportation when it comes to rules. So I have no issue with e-bikes. I think they all have their place. In fact, I know 2 or 3 people that have them, and the reason that they have them is exactly what those bikes are for. So, but we can't race with them. So, Jason had another question. I guess I just mentioned Jason earlier, not another question, but I didn't answer one on there. Jason and Gelke just popped a little subject up there and said, maybe talk a little bit about the differences between the Cat 1, Cat 2, Cat 3 races themselves, as well as tactics that go along in the different races, because they are very different. I can touch on that a little bit, but again, it's just what I think. There's a lot of different people that, it's a little different for everybody. I'll just talk about kind of the differences. Obviously Cat 3, beginner, Cat 2, intermediate, Cat 1, experts. I never did race Cat 3. I didn't really, the rules were a little bit different when I started 19 years ago. Plus, I rode for about 6 months before I did my first race, and I was already riding at the level of the guys that I was with they raced Cat 2 at the time, which was sport. So I just started as a 2 and only raced 2 and then moved up to 1 about 5 years later. However, the differences are distance and speed mainly. So you're looking at a Cat 3 race. All of our races are typically an hour or less. That's the time frame. And they're usually shorter. So I mean, they're going to be shorter, and a lot of our venues now have a different course, a little bit less difficult. Sorry if I get kind of lost sometimes and stutter. It's because I'm looking at questions that pop up and determining whether I want to speak to them now or finish my thought. Sometimes I get all mixed up. So I find with the 3s and even a little bit with the 2s, but not so much with them, but mainly with the 3s, the difference is that it is almost a sprint. These are very fast races since they're so short, and they're short for a reason, because these are beginners and they're not short for everybody. It also differs on the course, but I find that because of the time frame, you rarely need a lot of food. You rarely need a lot of hydration. You just need a little, 1 water bottle, and you probably don't even need to eat during a Cat 3 race. Now, I know some do. Some are out there, but I mean, realistically, if you're out there an hour or under, and your body's really probably not going to need a lot of food and nutrition. Just some water to stay topped off. That's really about all. Bump up to Cat 2, things change a little bit. You can almost kind of sort of get by without too much nutrition, hydration with the Cat 2 event, but a lot of these now go an hour 25, an hour 35, sometimes even, sneaking up on 2, just depends on the course. And I mean, I race a Cat 2 distance, or I have in the past when I've done single speed, because it's open Cat 2 distance, and nutrition's critical for the speeds, and it is hard in the effort that we're putting out. I'm doing 2 bottles, pretty much covers a Cat 2 distance, and I'm looking at least 2 goos and probably a deal of shot blocks. So 2 to 3 times I'm taking in nutrition during a Cat 2 event. Probably could get away with a little bit less, but when you're expending that much effort, that high intensity, food's critical. Obviously, if it's a hot event, hydration's important too. But again, that all varies. It varies from person to person. It varies from event to event, condition to a condition. So the big thing that I noticed jumping from Cat 2 to Cat 1, and I still find that true, especially if you go and you look at some of our spreadsheets and you look at the times. I thought that, hey, I'm moving up to 1. Yeah, I know these guys are good, but they've got to go an extra lap. Surely they're not going to go as fast. Well, obviously, if you look at the times, and I found out, and obviously I know now, no, they go an extra lap, but they don't go slower. They go faster than the Cat 2s and still do the extra lap. So at this point, you've got to eat and drink a ton. I mean, again, it's all different. It's all conditional. It's all up to the rider. But the amount of intake that you're going to have for one of these events is substantial. As for race tactics, I don't know. I'm not big on race tactics. I don't see a lot of tactics within mountain biking, honestly. I mean, there are some, I suppose. I mean, you've got to know if someone attacks you, and you got to know if you want to try to go with them or just gradually reel them in. Or if you're sucking that day and they're just going to drop you and you're just trying to hang on and not let the next guy get you. I mean, that's all physiology, but I mean, hey, you just gotta do it. As for drafting and riding in groups and, getting a good start, all those things are important, but they're all minimal, and they're all things that can just be worked on. I think basically with mountain biking, the thing is if you're good and you're good that day, tactics aren't going to play much of a part. You're going to be better than the next guy, or you're not. So tactics aren't typically going to lose you in a race. Usually it's just going to be fitness, having a bad day, mechanical, someone being better than you. So All right. Let's see. Looks like we have several comments about support. Yeah, you can't receive mechanical support or anything like that with your bike. You must finish on the same bike that you started. You cannot go to your car, so you can replace most anything on your bike if you really wanted to, but you would have to have all that stuff already in the pit area with your stuff. You can't leave the pit area to go get anything. So if you brought a new derailleur, if you brought a new set of cranks, if you brought a new set of pedals, yes, you could change all that stuff on your bike, but only if you had it there handy and all the tools in the pit, and you would have to do it yourself. It's not like cross where you can get someone, neutral support, someone to come do it for you. You have to do everything yourself. You have to change your flats by yourself. You have to air your tires up by yourself. If you need to stop in between laps and air your tire up, you need to do that yourself. You have to have a pump available. If there was a pump in the pit and it was not yours, I'm sure that would be okay. Technically, it's against the rules, but I'm sure that was not a big deal. But anyway, yes, as for nutrition, now that's different. You can have someone in the feed zone giving you stuff, or, you know, there's usually a zone, and that feed zone will be set up at the beginning of the race. And that is, again, another thing that the riders need to go check out. You need to know where this is at. Obviously, if you're Cat 3, you probably don't need to know that because you're only going to do one lap. So you're going to take everything that you need with you. So that's not a big deal. But if you're Cat 2, or if we're on a course where Cat 3s are doing multiple laps like Turkey, you need to know where it's at because you might need something in there. Rest of us, we do. We have to have a transition area. If we have someone in that pit transition feed zone area that is set up by the officials and the race promoter prior to the races, then you can grab food and nutrition from there. But again, all that stuff has to be done in there, and it has to already be in there. You can have someone hand it to you and give it to you. So that is acceptable for food. They just can't help you fix your bike. Example that I had one time, I had a loose cleat, rolled through the start finish, and it was at a 6-hour race, so I had plenty of laps to do, and I had to stop and fix my cleat. Luckily, I had all the tools to do it. I just need to tighten it up. But I had several people in the pit saying, "Here, let me do it. Here's my wrenches." And I'm like, "No, you can't give those to me. You can't do it for me. I have to do it for myself." Especially considering I was sitting in front of the official. So luckily, I knew that, and I fixed it myself. Hey, Mike Pickle, I see you're here. Good check in. Yep. Marty Carr, whole shot. Yeah. Actually, I will say that I think, you know, I will go back and make an amend to what I just said when I said tactics. It's not all that big of a deal. But the only time I've ever seen tactics, if you have a really, really large group of riders and you suck at starting, but you're a good rider, you've got to work on your start because it's going to take you forever, depending on the course, to work your way through. And if you're in competition with someone that's really good, they get a good start, you're 10 riders back. By the time you catch them, you're going to be pretty wrecked, and then chasing and then trying to go with them is going to be hard. So there are a few cases where something like that may affect, but not very often. Steve's even, you know, popping in here with another little comment, and I was unaware of this, mainly just because it rarely happens in mountain biking, but it could happen. He said, team tactics are actually not allowed. So example would be if you're riding for a team, you've got several guys out there, you know, you make an attack and some guy's trying to chase you, and you've got 2 or 3 teammates there that won't get out of his way, that are kind of blocking him, that are holding him up. That's against the rules. So you can't do that. So again, that's probably not going to happen very often, but you know, like anything, it could. You're welcome, Cleo. Glad that was helpful. And hand ups are not a crime, Stephen Cordes. You are correct. We are not UCI, so you know, even a little bear hand up is is okay. I don't know, nationals, did they? Yeah, well, no, even at a national event, they said that they couldn't do them at nationals. So I don't know. We'll look the other way probably for a beer hand up, because if you're getting a beer hand up, you're not winning anyway, usually. Alan White, definitely. Steve Slosson's going to like this one. Alan White says, don't argue with the race official when your Garmin shows a different time than the official has. Yeah, please don't do that. Just dumb. Alex Canada, call-ups on starts. We do have some rules for call-ups. I think if you're in the, I don't know, I don't even remember what they are, but if you're like in the top 5 in our series, you have the right to be on the front row. But we actually really don't do call-ups, not mountain biking. We don't have to. We used to do it when we did a mass start for the Cat 1s, and that was just so that we could give the fast guys equal opportunity because we were doing a huge group all at one time. But we don't do that with our standard groups. Again, I think the rule is if you're in the top 5, something like that, then you have the right to be on the front row. Most people recognize who's fast and who's not. Most people know if they're going to be on the second row, and they just go to the second row. And they know that someone's fast, and they let them start in front of them. So it's usually not an issue. All right. Man, we are approaching 30 minutes. All right, I'm going to go ahead and let this roll, even though we are approaching 36, 40 minutes. I'm going to end up in a long one again, but we've only got a couple more things. Julie Denton just asked questions, just general stuff about talking about, you know, riders knowing their limits, worrying about trying to push themselves and do things that, you know, they know these Cat 1 guys are, man, they're riding all this stuff. And, man, should I be doing that in races? If I can't do that, then I shouldn't be catting up or moving up, or just things like that. Just the thought process that a lot of those guys and girls go through. She also asked about nutrition, hydration. However, I think we've already covered that, so I think we're okay there. I don't really want to talk too much about that, Julie, but I will just touch on a few things. So. Especially this year, we have a lot of courses. There's going to be sections that are a little scary. Some of us ride those without any trouble. Some don't. Some get scared. But it's all about knowing your limits, knowing your skill level. Hey, there's still things that sometimes scare me that I'm not going to ride. And there's some things that are hard for me to ride because I'm riding single speeds. So don't let it worry you. Just do what you can do. My thinking is, again, pre-ride. If you have an area that you're not comfortable with, find someone to help show you how to ride it. Maybe they can help you get you through that. If that doesn't work and you're still not comfortable doing it, then don't do it, but plan it. There's sections that I plan. Typically for me, it's not because I can't do it. It's just because the odds of me successfully getting through this section is minimal because of my gearing. Tabletop is one of them. You know, there's a steep climb at Turkey. There's a couple of just really rocky sections here and there that are just really hard for me because of my gearing. I can't do it. I plan it. If I'm out riding for fun or pre-riding, I'm going to try it. It's just fun to try, and I'm going to see if I can do it. If I miss, it's no big deal. But in a race, those few seconds are costly. You lose time, you lose energy, you lose momentum. So if there are those sections that are iffy for me, and there's usually, in most races, there's at least one area that's like that, I plan it. I get to that section, I don't hesitate. I cycle across, jump off the bike, run over the section, jump right back on and get going. I rarely lose any time in comparison to trying to ride it. However, if I did try to ride it and missed, I'd lose time. So I don't worry about it. You know, stuff happens, just do it. Do what's smart, do what's efficient, and do it safe. Okay. All right. I'm actually going to, hey guys, I'm going to stop this video. I'm going to stop this. I've got 2 subjects left, but I think they're very lengthy ones. I'm going to stop this. I'm going to turn around and come right back on here in like 1 minute. That way these will record in 2 separate videos instead of 1, and then that way we can use them. So I'm going to end this now, and I'll come right back literally in like less than a minute.